Well, you look at that. For those that saw that, I don't know why it glitched like that. But,
David, I swear this never happens, Mendelson.
It doesn't. I mean, you know what? It's always keeping us on our toes anyway. But welcome back to the Triple Play Fantasy Football Podcast here. We've got Doc, we've got Johnny, and we've got myself, no Brad Stradamus tonight, but we are, of course, always presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Reminder, use code TriplePlay22 and you'll get 10% off all the great tools over at fantasypoints.com. All the great articles, podcasts, everything over there is a must-see, must-watch, must-listen to. I promise you it's all worth everything I'm telling you and more. But like we said, we're hanging three of us tonight, and I feel like it's been a while. I guess it's only been, we took a week break.
It's been long enough that you forgot the code, David.
Isn't that the right code? You always do this to me. I'm gonna catch on
the right code.
Days.
It's the right code.
Yes, scared me for a second, Johnny. But boys, I'm pumped to be talking about the NFC West today. It's a very exciting division. A lot of powerhouse teams and players in this division. And I don't know about you guys, but I guess the Rams are the favorites in this one.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Indeed.
For sure.
I thought maybe you guys might say the 49ers have.
No.
Oh, you think Eric's going to say it? And if Eric doesn't, you think I'm going to say it?
Nah, it's Rams clearly at the top. 49ers and Cardinals are battling 2 and 3. And finally, Seahawks are at rock bottom.
Oh, yeah. You're happy about that. We'll talk about all these teams in depth here. And just a reminder here, if you guys want to check us out and leave comments during the show, make sure you guys watch us on YouTube. If you have any questions regarding any dynasty redraft questions, doesn't have to even be about these teams, give it to us in the comments and we will make sure we hit on them throughout the show. But without further ado, why don't we get started? Let's talk about the NFC West here. And let's start off with those 49ers, Doc. Why don't you tell us about their rookies that they just drafted in this past NFL draft, and if there's any fantasy relevant ones we should know about?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're in June now, and in our home league, we're setting up a draft date. So, it's really starting to come, not all the hype in the offseason, talking about Gabe Davis every day. So, 49ers didn't have any draft picks in the first round, nor will they the next couple of years because of the Trey Lance trade. But they did take a couple rookies on the offensive side of the ball. The first is Tyrion Davis-Price, third-round pick running back out of LSU. And I think what this really spells is that the Trey Sermon experiment is probably over. Ooh. I know they didn't bring back Raheem Mostert. Okay, the Trey Sermon experiment isn't going to be over, but he's not guaranteed a role. There's nothing more the 49ers love to do than trade up for a running back. And
I was going to say, has a 49ers running back ever been guaranteed a role?
No. So actually the last 4 seasons, we've had 4 different rushing leaders. So that might spell a little bit different for Elijah Mitchell. But I like Davis-Price. He's straight downhill runner. I think he has a chance to be the goal line back. And the other one we've took is Danny Gray, speedster who ran a 4.33 out of SMU. And I think he's going to be Debo's replacement. I don't think that Debo stays with the 49ers the entire year. He averaged
you're going to trade during the year.
I do think so. I do think so. The reason I say that, he had 80.3 yards per game and 16.4 yards per rush his senior season at SMU. I don't think they take him if he doesn't have that kind of rushing profile. It's going to come down to how much they're willing to pay Debo. And they did a good job kind of standing firm during the draft. But if they don't get the capital they want for him, just like we saw with Jimmy G, they're going to be stubborn and hold on to him.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There's a lot of questions surrounding that 49ers team right now. Jimmy G not being there for the workouts right now as he recovers from shoulder surgery. Debo doesn't have a contract. So that team could look very different. We don't even know what's going to happen with Trey Lance, which we'll get to all that stuff in a little bit here. But Johnny, you had the Cardinals, and this team also has some kind of trouble in paradise of their own here with a disgruntled quarterback, and who knows what with this team here. So any rookies we should know about for redraft for this season?
They drafted their first offensive pick was a tight end, Trey McBride, but that's not really somebody you're going to target and redraft. I mean, just with Zack Ertz there, he's going to play second fiddle at the tight end. I do think a sneaky pick, though, their running back that they took, Keontae Ingram. He has a really good shot at beating out, Benjamin to be number 2 there. I mean, it's not a big name he's beating out. So, and with Connor's injury history, all of a sudden you could, with the last pick of your draft, get an RB1 halfway through the season.
Yeah, Darrell Williams is there, and we'll touch on him later, obviously. But they do have, like you said, Ingram is a great, just kind of could be a nice waiver wire ad midway through the season if Wicks breaks that way, where he could be the RB1 there. And Trey McBride was the top tight end coming into this year in this class. But like you said, Johnny, with Zack Ertz there, what's the redraft value for him this season? I don't see him being somebody that anybody's drafting. In any 10-12 team leagues.
In Dynasty, Zack Ertz kind of even is like a smokescreen, and you can probably get him later than you'd expect for what could be a top tier tight end in 2 or 3 years. I love how far people project for Dynasty rankings, like the world won't end in 5 years or something.
That's right. For the Seattle Seahawks, the one notable player, they did take wide receiver Derek Young from Division II school Lenore Ryan in the 2nd round. They also took wide receiver Bo Melton from Rutgers in the 7th round. So 2 7th-round wide receivers that expect to be on special teams and developmental prospects here. But the rookie they took that is going to have a big impact is running back Ken Walker III from Michigan State. Very powerful running back, an early down option, a 1st and 2nd down back. He's got great speed, timed at a 4.38 40 at the scouting combine. He's also somebody that in the passing game, you have to wonder what's going to be there. He only caught 19 passes in 3 seasons in college. Did have last year, though, 1,636 yards and 18 touchdowns. And he actually led all of college football with 89 broken tackles last year. And if you're wondering the type of volume he can get, well, he had in 8 of 12 games last year, he had 23 or more carries. So I think he's somebody right now that he's kind of being undervalued a little bit because of Rashad Penny, and we'll touch on him in a couple minutes. But I think he could be a top 20 running back this year if things break his way.
I like him
as 20.
I like him as a dynasty asset because they signed Penny to a 1-year deal. So I don't think that there's a rush to give him the lion's share of carries right away.
But wait, Doc, you're betting on Chris Carson, who looked like he wasn't even going to be in football anymore with the neck injury.
I don't think he plays this season.
That's what I'm saying. And then you have Rashad Penny, who already has an injury before the season's even started. And
so what I think they'll do is they'll see what they have in Drew Lock. I think they'll let Drew Lock.
They know Drew Lock's not the answer. They literally punted on the draft this year because they want
Smith is the answer.
They want a quarterback in 2023. We're seeing what Drew Lock. They know what Drew Lock is.
So the way I would get the most value for Ken Walker is I'd wait till like week 4 or week 5 when Penny's getting the lion's share of carries, and in a dynasty league, that's when you make an offer for him.
I mean, in dynasty right now, I think people understand that this is probably Ken Walker's backfield by himself next year. But unless you're playing with people that don't understand what the heck they're doing.
Also recency bias.
I think your better chance of getting value on him is this season in redraft leagues because people might not think he'll get a bulk of the carries, but I don't think it's more than a month before he's getting a lot of touches there. And we know Pete Carroll is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. That's how they set up everything on that team. So I think he's going to get so much volume that he's going to be a factor, and he's going to be an RB2 for fantasy this season. So I do like him a lot. As far as the Rams go, they only had one player that you could even possibly consider, if you want to even say that term loosely here, and that's the rookie Kyran Williams from Notre Dame, who literally went from being a potential 3rd-round pick to being one of the last picks in the 5th round to the Rams. I think his 40 time was like almost 5. It was like a 4.9 or something like that. And he's
Dave,
not.
You can beat that, right?
I think I got. Eric? What did we time when we ran it?
I think I got like a 4.95 or something.
I think we all got under 5, but it wasn't by much. It's not. When you see how hard it is to run under 5, you appreciate these guys. But he's going to be somebody. He might get in on passing downs and maybe help block on 3rd and longs or something. He's not a great necessarily running back, but he can catch passes, as he was 5th among FBS running backs in both catches and receiving yards last season. However,
it's so weird considering his 40 time.
I know it's why that's why his stock's up. They're like, if you can't run fast and that's kind of your role, what's the point? He did just break his foot though. They did say he's expected to be ready by training camp, but he's already going to be behind. Not somebody you should consider in redraft this year. And in Dynasty, I don't even know where you would value him, honestly. I don't see him having a very long career. So,
damn.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the truth. I don't know one out there I know outside of Kyle Yates saying he was his RB1 before the pre-draft.
David, I swear I'm not a hater, Mendelson.
I'm not. I don't see the value in Kyran Williams. But let's go and let's talk about each team's fantasy weapons in general going into this year for redraft purposes. Doc, you're a 49ers fan, so you're as plugged into the team as anybody else. So why don't you tell us just about some of the headline names, and then if there's any that we should know about that might be a little under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish on Trey Lance, as I think most of the fantasy community is. He went 1-1 last year, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but that's without the playbook being made to his strengths. What I thought was kind of alarming, and I hope the 49ers do to preserve his career, he had 38 carries last year in 2 games. That's exposing him to a lot of hits. So I think that what they should hopefully do is use his running for goal line packages and make it so he has to, utilize his strengths. So strong arm, short passes, receivers that can get open and create some separation. Elijah Mitchell, I'm not as bullish on. As mentioned, the 49ers have had a different rusher in 4 straight seasons. Nobody has had a double-digit rushing touchdown season for them since Frank Gore back in 2009. He had 19 receptions last year. 10 of those came in 2 games, so not high receiving upside as well. I think everybody thinks this is going to be a different year for Kyle Shanahan running back. But just when you think it's someone like we all had Mostert or Trey Sermon last year, it's Eli Mitchell. Debo, like I said, just from what I've read, I think he's gone. He had 136 touches last year. And to compare that, he had 112 touches his first 2 seasons. He had 14 total touchdowns last year, 6 receiving, 8 rushing. He's just not going to have that again, especially with someone with a history of Liz Frank injuries. I really like Brandon Nyuk. I think this is the Nyuk season.
I've seen that a few places.
Eric, if they're going to trade Debo, why didn't they trade him before the draft?
I don't think they got the value they wanted to. Imagine if like a wide receiver goes down and a team feels like they're contending.
Didn't the Jets offer the 10th pick?
You never know what they actually came out and did. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan try to keep everything hush-hush. But I say after the Colts was, really when he got out of the doghouse, 5+ targets in 11 out of those 14 final games, including playoffs. He actually had more receiving yards in his second year than he did the first season. And I think he's going to be a big weapon for Trey Lance. I also love George Kittle as well. The 49ers used him a lot as blocking last year because Jimmy G wasn't very mobile. But we saw weeks 13 and 14, the upside he had. 9 for 181 and 2 against Seattle, 13 for 151 and 1 against the Bengals.
Was that with Garoppolo?
It was with Garoppolo.
On National Tight End Day.
He played 1 game with Trey Lance, and he got 1 ball for 29 yards in a 23-6 win. Okay, if you use one sample, a 1 game sample size, David, you could use Matt Flynn's week 17 when he threw 6 touchdowns. Don't use 1 game sample sizes.
All I'm saying is, are you concerned that they're going to want Trey Lance to develop and they're be having Kittle block a lot more this coming season, to where even though he's a very talented pass catcher, they're going to have him as an extra blocker on a lot of plays?
I mean, I think the thing about Kittle is he's a great blocker, so you can use that to kind of deceive defenses.
For fantasy, that's a problem.
But what I'm saying, so Jimmy G isn't mobile, so you can't open up the playbook like you can with Lance, where you can have the offensive line shift, or that he can roll out and create more time for that.
Well, let me ask you, Doc, where do you have Kittle ranked for your rankings for fantasy for 2022 for redraft?
I have him 3rd.
What?
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's high.
Behind Kelsey and Andrews?
Yeah.
So you have Kittle over Pitts?
Yeah.
Ooh.
He's going to score more touchdowns than him.
I have Waller and I have...
I was going to say Kittle over Waller? Come on.
A healthy George Kittle, yes.
All right. Well, John and I both. John, how do you feel about Pitts over Kittle?
I like that. I like that a lot.
Johnny and I
it's the same logic if you follow. It's the same logic with them getting Drake London. It just opens up the offense for Pitts more. He's not getting doubled. And it's the same logic, I'd say, for Darren Waller. Devontae Adams does not hurt Waller's position at all. It just opens up the offense and he doesn't get doubled anymore.
Okay, and what about the 49ers? Does that not help?
Trey Lance,
they're getting rid of Debo, so I mean
they are getting rid of Debo. Now that's why they drafted Danny Gray, but
NBA rigged in the house, our guy.
NBA rigged, but the 49ers being a run-first offense, that opens it up for play action for when George Kittle does go out.
When he does those little fake blocks that tight ends love to do.
Yeah, I think he's, Eric, I think my bet is he's tight end 5, and I think that's like I mean, Rigg says he's going to be a tight end. He's going to be the number 2.
Let me tell you, what other tight ends put up numbers like he does? Like, what other tight end has his ceiling?
Waller, pretty much, like all of the top 5 have his ceiling.
Andrew.
All right, I'm going to go to their game logs last year.
We have to move on because we got
to continue with the next team while I pull up these.
I will ask this one last question on the Niners. The Fantasy Pros consensus rankings has Elijah Mitchell as the RB24. So let me give you guys a couple guys going around him, and you tell me who you prefer, okay? A.J. Dillon or Elijah Mitchell?
A.J. Dillon.
Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell or Miles Sanders?
Miles Sanders.
Mitchell.
Johnny's on Mitchell, so far you're against it. All right, Travis Etienne or Elijah Mitchell?
Elijah Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell. I might as well just keep it.
All right, one more. Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Elijah Mitchell?
Elijah Mitchell.
Oh, never Clyde Edwards.
Yeah, his name is a bad word in my house now. Okay, so let's move on then from the Niners. Let's talk about the Cardinals. And they also have a lot of players on this team. They've acquired Hollywood Brown in a trade. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for 6 games. So what do we think about the Cardinals and their fantasy options?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Kyler Murray, he's going to play. Like, let's be real. Like, it's too much money. They're going to come up with something, and it's not enough money because it's just a quarterback that they're going to really grumble about it for too long. He's going to play. He'll get his new contract. I have him just outside the top 5, if only because Hopkins missing for so long. You know, a third of the season is such a large portion of time that it really limits, I think, his upside, even though, of course, he has that high floor due to rushing. With Hopkins, as I said, he's missing 6 games. You know, he's not going to be – I don't even think you can rank him as a wide receiver, 2 as on aggregate for the whole season, just because he's missing a third of it. He'd really have to go off in the other games for it to matter. And then Hollywood Brown, sneaky. I think he's really sneaky as a wide receiver too, like bottom tier wide receiver too. Christian Kirk, of all people, shined when Hopkins was out. We think Hollywood Brown's a little bit better than Christian Kirk. I think we can all agree on that. So I really think that there's a good shot that Hollywood Brown, shows his skills in the 6 games and carries that over even when Hopkins is back and ends the season, as a wide receiver too. I do think it's interesting between the other wide receivers there, Rondale Moore and AJ Green. How much do you bump them, knowing that for a third of the season they're going to be much better, and then it'll tail off? It's something where I could see, maybe jumping a round or 2 just to try and get some quick wins in at the beginning of the year, fantasy wise, knowing you'll have to, cut bait with them later. And Zack Ertz, I think he's much better than people were giving him credit for as he was leaving the Philadelphia Eagles. It just seemed to be an unfortunate system with having the 2 tight ends, and they couldn't agree on exactly, how to share the ball there, how to share the targets. I think he's a low end tight end one, but it's certainly something where you'll probably be able to get him late, and it's probably could be a steal because there is a lot of upside there because he is talented.
Buddy Albert checking in. What's up, my man? So question for you, Johnny. Zack Ertz was tight end 5 last year. You don't think a full season in that Arizona offense where he was pretty much rejuvenated, you have him still as a low end tight end 1 rather than closer to the top 5 he finished?
Yeah, because I think especially it's a reverse of what we talked about with Hopkins out for a third of the season. Rondale Morris doesn't demand as much attention as DeAndre Hopkins will. So there's more, coverages can be adjusted to take, Ertz out of the game a little bit or anything like that. So I think it limits his upside there. And let's be honest. I mean, Ertz had a good season when he went there, but a lot of it was, one or two plays a game. And if you take away one or two plays, he had a rushing touchdown. How often is that going to happen? He had like a big 80-yarder or something like that. How often is that going to happen? I don't think he has that speed to get 80-yard touchdowns every week.
Are you guys worried at all that the Cardinals offense or like the Cardinals in general start to falter this year?
Yeah, 100%.
I was going to say, I looked at their schedule from last season, and they started by scoring 30 or more points 7 out of their first 9 games. And then after the bye, they only scored 30 once. And it was against the Bears, actually twice, because they did it Seahawks, the final regular season game.
Eric knew that one without looking it up.
but they scored 12 versus the Lions, 16 versus the Colts, 11 in the playoff game. Like, it kind of seems like they're the Utah Jazz of the NFL, where they start hot early and then just falter later in the season.
The Phoenix Suns.
I think it's in the sense of like, it always ties in with Kyler Murray stop running because he runs early in the season and then an injury prevents him from running. And they're not nearly as explosive when he's just a pocket passer, right? That takes a huge element out of their game. And this has been 2 straight years where they started out with a really good record, looked really good, and then they faltered in the second half of the year. So it's not surprising to me in that sense. I do think, Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think is a good coach.
He's rated as the 4th best head coach in that thing that came out today.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, by the Good Morning
Rated by who?
By looks, maybe by looks, but I don't know about play.
No, there's like Good Morning
at-home draft setup.
Put out the top 10 coaches, and it's crazy. Nick Vay, Tomlin, Brandon Staley, none of them are in there, and Cliff Kingsbury's 4.
Oh, okay, well we can disregard.
Oh, they're doing that for clicks. Like, who can blame them, eh?
But I do think he doesn't know how to make adjustments. So when teams start adapting to this Cardinals team in the second half of the year, they don't make adjustments and they're exposed. And so I do think there's potentially for this team without DeAndre Hopkins first 6 games to not come out and play well. Before last question on the Cardinals here, he's the consensus wide receiver 25 Hollywood Brown is. Is that too low, too high, or just right?
I think that's fair because you have to factor in the entire season.
I was going to say, I had him, maybe I have him 24, low end wide receiver too, but you're splitting hairs. But I'm not going to, get pissed off that somebody had him ranked 3 spots off or something.
Okay. I just wanted to see if that's where you both had him roughly in that range. Let's go to the Seahawks really quick here. And quarterbacks, I don't think we need to talk about Geno
David,
Smith.
Where's the poop emoji?
I don't have one on screen to share, but Geno Smith and Drew Lock, both deep end QB2s in Superflex leagues, both have inaccuracy issues. Lock's going to take more shots downfield. Geno's more of a short intermediate thrower.
Geno Smith finally has a competent offensive coordinator. Maybe he'll turn into Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah. I think NBA Rig, I think Cliff Kingsbury needs to show something more this season, but they just gave him a contract extension. So I think he will be there, even if they're really bad this year. I just don't think it was the right move, but they're invested in him, but he hasn't shown he can adjust. But back to the Seahawks. Yeah, quarterback, we know it's just poop. I think in their minds, they're trying to tank for one of the top QBs in this coming draft. It's a lot more stacked up top there with some guys that are a lot better quarterbacks than this year. As far as running back goes, Rashad Penny. Now, here's some interesting stats for you guys. From week 14 on, Rashad Penny was the number 1 running back in fantasy. And in every game, he's had at least 15 carries in his career. He's averaged 5 yards per carry or more. And he had the 3rd most 100-yard rushing games last season of all running backs, even though he only played in 7 games. More than Alvin Kamara, more than Leonard Fournette, DeAndre Swift. It was a pretty crazy list, what he was behind. So we see the potential there from Rashad Penny. Are you guys taking a chance on Rashad Penny in your leagues with his injury history?
Absolutely not. Game
Eric
script.
is the most terrified person of injury-prone running backs.
John,
it's almost a meme at this point.
John, who made a video last year touting Rashad Penny as a league winner? Me.
Oh, okay. I was going to say not me. I thought you were like calling me out or something.
Well, his value, right? He's the RB 36 off the board.
It's
going
like
right around. He goes right after it goes Ken Walker 33, Melvin Gordon 34, Cordero Patterson 35, Rashad Penny 36.
Rashad Penny's stock is at an all-time high right now, which means you sell it.
Buy for a penny, sell for a pound.
Look at the Seahawks talk. They're tanking for this year. I agree. They're not a fun team to look at. But Rashad Penny, so you guys are both not drafting him even at, I think, a pretty fair 36th running back off the board here.
No.
Okay. I think that's a good spot.
Yeah, I think if he's there and I went wide receiver heavy early on, I would take a chance on him there. Even though we know what could happen, just the potential. Let's go to the wide receivers, though. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are the big ones here. DK Metcalf, the wide receiver 19 last year. Tyler Lockett, the wide receiver
not
33.
at minicamp.
Yeah, that's right. He's not at minicamp right now. It's I think he wants a new contract, rightfully so. Now, this is the stats that I took. Weeks 5 through 8 was when Geno Smith started for Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf was actually the wide receiver 4 over that time, and Tyler Lockett was the wide receiver 25. Now, I think where people are standing with them right now is a little bit too drastic, because if I go to the wide receiver rankings for right now, the Fantasy Pros consensus, we have DK Metcalf is the wide receiver 19, and Tyler Lockett is the wide receiver 33. Is that too much of a downgrade for these guys?
Yeah. Think about the game script. They're going to be playing from behind a lot of games. Tyler Lockett is one of the most slept on.
So were the Broncos last year, and you wouldn't want much of a Judy or Cortland Sutton. So
yeah, but they mostly had Teddy Bridgewater throwing them the ball. Living with a Broncos fan, you learn to learn. You learn to you live to learn a little bit more about the team.
But yeah, I think tight end or wide receiver 19 for Metcalf, wide receiver 33 for Lockett. I definitely feel better about Metcalf, I think, going into this year, especially if he gets the contract extension. But I think wide receiver 19 is ridiculous. I think he's going to be a back end wide receiver 1, maybe a high end wide receiver 2, I think, at worst, right? I mean, again, we talked about wide receiver 4 over the 4 weeks that Geno played. So it's not like he was a huge drop off at that point. I know the touchdowns were a big part of that, but that's something you have to consider there. And NBA rigged ads, if the Seahawks are tanking, blowing out frequently, even Ken Walker, I would also stay away from Ken Walker, by the way. How are his hands? I think he was just underutilized in the passing game in college. I do think he can actually catch. And so I think that will be more part of his game in the NFL. But, I mean, Ken Walker is going to be used because they used, I believe, a second-round draft pick on him. So he will be used. They're going to want to see what they have in him. So
it's crazy to me. I know that, the Russell Wilson's gone, so they don't have the immediacy of needing to improve the offensive line, but they still just didn't bother really. Like for the next guy, like it's still the same old.
Who are the wide receivers ahead of Metcalf? Well, right now on Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, they have Amari Cooper, which with Deshaun Watson potentially not playing, I would definitely have him over Amari Cooper. They have Brandon Cooks ahead of DK Metcalf. Would you guys have Cooks or Metcalf?
I like Brandon. No. Brandon Cooks. He's just always seems to sneak into like having a great season, and now it's another year with Davis Mills.
I'll take Metcalf there. I think I would have him at 17 because then it goes into DJ Moore. I think I'd rather have DJ Moore, and then Jalen Waddle. I think this for me, he settles in right in like the tier 4 wide receiver 17.
Jalen Waddle's that high?
Wide receiver 15 in PPR. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the range he's kind of settled in right now. Last, Noah Fant, tight end 12 last year. He talked about how they're going to feature him more this season. He had 670 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. This actually is interesting. The Seahawks picked up Noah Fant's option, which was the first time in franchise history the Seahawks have exercised a 5th-year option on a player. So they've never done that
draft
before.
him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's interesting. They never have invested a 5th-year option. Think like Russell Wilson, they gave him a contract extension before the 5th year. And then like Rashad Penny, they declined his 5th-year option. I believe they drafted Ayupati or something in the first round before that. And they declined his 5th-year option. It's been that way every year.
Ayupati, that's the former 49ers lineman.
Or it was the offensive lineman that starts with I. Can't remember his name. Maybe someone in the comments remembers. And don't forget about Travis Omer. He's an elite pass-catching running back. That is going to hurt Ken Walker's value if he plays and gets a lot of snaps there. But I think Noah Fant, there is potential for him to be a back end tight end 1 in an offense that's going to be playing from behind and needs some offensive weapons here outside the 2 wide receivers. So kind of a guy I think you could draft as a back end a tight end for you. Nothing too special. He could be an exaggeration when he specialized. Really quick, the Rams, Cooper Kupp. What wide receiver do you guys have him as? 1, 2, or 3?
I think I have him as
2.
You have him as what, Eric?
I think it's either 3 or 4. I have Tyreek Hill as 1, Justin Jefferson 2, and I might have Jamar Chase at 3.
Okay, I have Cooper Kupp in my latest update as 3. But I think he's a stud. We don't really need to get into Cooper Kupp.
I have him as 2 just because you guys said it in an earlier episode. We never see him back to back.
That's true. Yeah. So I think
where do you guys knock him down 1?
Where do you guys rank Stafford as a QB?
He was the QB 5 last year. Mm-hmm. Just keep in mind. I have him, I believe, is like a back end of the top 10.
Really? That low?
Wow.
I mean, I think that he's going to regress a little bit with the efficiency and volume.
I think I have him 11. I've never been sold on Matt Stafford.
Where do you have
guess where Matt Stafford ranks in career passing yards all time?
5th.
For his age, he's like always number 1, but I don't know where he is in total.
Wow, Dave, 5th is very bullish on him. He's 12th.
He's been in the league for like 14 years or 13 years, something like that.
If anything, I'm drafting the wide receivers, and Allen Robinson is the one we haven't talked about, but I'm taking more Stafford. I'm not taking any of the running backs.
Stafford's a great pick, I think, if you wait on quarterback and you can get him a little bit later, because people are going to be targeting like the Jalen Hurts and even guys like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, the guys that have the game-breaking upside with their rushing. So I think he'll fall in that category of, hey, like he's the 11th quarterback off the board. I'm okay with that. Really quick, Cam Akers, are we in or we out?
Out.
In.
I'm out, I think, on Cam Akers.
I think he's doing a disservice from his playoff performance to what he actually does in your guys' mind. I think it's a little recency bias.
Yeah, I agree.
It is recency bias, but they also traded for Sony Michel last year. I don't think they phase him out.
Yeah. Really quick here, Stafford or Rodgers in redraft? I have Rodgers.
I have Stafford.
Staff.
Kind of split. I think Rodgers is going to surprise and still be very good this year with a bunch
Aaron
of
Rodgers, you mean? No
way. All right, so last guy we're talking about, Allen Robinson. I think like many people right now in the fantasy industry, I don't think I've seen one person out on Allen Robinson. I think I bold predicted on Twitter, and I'll announce it on this show, I think Allen Robinson's going to score more touchdowns than Cooper Kupp this year.
I don't think that's crazy.
Nothing's crazy in the offseason.
I have Allen Robinson as my wide receiver.
Doesn't mean it's correct.
Wide receiver 8?
Yeah. He's had 3 top 12 finishes.
He's a wide receiver 28 right now.
He's playing with the best quarterback of his career. He's played with a quarterback that has made 1 Pro Bowl while he's been on the team. That was Blake Bortles was the only QB to be a Pro Bowl playing with Allen Robinson.
Let me ask you guys one last question here. Who's older, Cooper Kupp or Allen Robinson?
Cooper Kupp.
Allen Robinson, because otherwise it'd be a trick question.
It's Cooper Kupp, actually.
Cooper Kupp is 29, Allen Robinson's 28.
Which is surprising because you would think it's Allen Robinson by how long he's been around.
So I actually looked at my rankings now. I have Cooper Kupp 5.
That's kind of bold having him at 5. But he's going to be a stud. Allen Robinson, I think I have to look at my rankings. I'm pretty sure I have Allen Robinson, I think somewhere in the high wide receiver 2 range.
You have Allen Robinson.
I've updated my rankings since we put it in our Patreon.
Well, I'm looking in the chat right now, or in the document, and you don't even have him in the top 25.
But that's an old document. I've been updating him on my Fantasy Pros rankings.
Okay.
But last thing, Allen's a stud. You guys just predict him having more touchdowns, and he had never had a QB. NBA Rigged, you're keeping track of the water bets we have in the Discord, so you got to add that I predict that he's going to have more touchdowns than Cooper Kupp. It's got to be documented in the Discord chat. And then Doc having him as Cooper Kupp is wide receiver 5, I guess. I don't know if that's super bold, but either way,
I haven't seen anyone have him lower than that.
That's true. We could maybe think about putting that in there.
Let's put him to 6 then, Eric, just for fun then.
Outside the top 5. But I think that's going to cover the NFC West. We're trying to keep it about 30, 35 minutes for you guys. Nice, short, sweet, to the point here. Johnny, why don't you tell us about your movie Power Hours real quick, because those are starting to get a lot of traction on YouTube.
Yeah, so there's two released right now. It's a trilogy. The third one's waiting in the wings. We'll wait till we hear the demand bubbling up. But yeah, it's just clips of movies. The first one admittedly is a little heavy on the Will Ferrell. Not that there's anything wrong with that. He's made a ton of movies. They're all hits. But yeah, 60-second clip of a movie. Take a drink or don't. Enjoy responsibly every minute. And then there's a bonus clip at the end.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
They're fantastic. The first one's already near 500 views. Second one's closing in on 200. And they just go up every weekend when people search for some movie Power Hours.
Big spike on Saturday nights.
Yeah, and they're something that you can watch anytime with your friends. Johnny takes a lot of time to put those together. So make sure you guys like it.
The third one, I gotta warn you guys. The third one is my magnum opus, and it's in HD, baby. It's all HD. No bad clips. No bad quality clips.
When is that supposed to come out? You said this Saturday.
Let's let it breathe a little bit. Let's let it breathe a little bit.
All right,
I want to hear the people craving it.
That's a tease. I like it. And Doc, you put out a Saquon Barkley video today about fading him. So if you guys are interested to hear why Doc is fading Saquon Barkley, go on the Triple Play YouTube channel to check that out. And if you guys like hanging with us and you want to be part of our Discord, in the link below, we have our Discord chat, which is always a good time. We have movies and video games as one of our sections in there. We've got water bets, of course, all the fantasy talk for all 3 sports here you need. So many great channels and fun stuff going on here. The Top Gun volleyball scenes ranking all time. Have you guys seen Top Gun?
No.
Not the new one. And this is a controversial. Top Gun does not make an appearance in the Power Hour. There's too many movies out there to throw Top Gun in there.
Johnny, NBA Rigged might have to address this in the Discord here.
Overrated.
Well, that's going to do it for us for this week. For Doc, for Johnny, I'm David. We're going to make like a bread truck, and we're going to haul these buns. We'll catch you guys.